U.S. President Donald Trump says the ceasefire is on life support after he rejected Iran's latest proposal to end the war and said the U.S. is ready to restart the suspended Project Freedom operation. Meanwhile, Iran warned that its armed forces are fully prepared to respond to any aggression. Defense chiefs of South Korea and the United States met in Washington and discussed major security issues, including alliance modernization. They reaffirmed the alliance and agreed to strengthen cooperation on the transfer of wartime operational control. The Blue House says it strongly condemns last week's attack on a South Korean cargo ship in the Strait of Hormuz, as authorities continue to investigate who was behind the attack, after confirming that an unidentified aircraft caused the fire aboard the vessel. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. U.S. President Donald Trump has some stern words for Iran, calling the ceasefire between the two countries unbelievably weak. He also described Iran's peace proposal as a piece of garbage and said he is ready to restart the suspended Project Freedom operation. Our Kim Bo-young tells us more.
U.S. President Donald Trump has described the month-long ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran as being unbelievably weak and on massive life support. Trump made comments in response to questions from reporters in the Oval Office on Monday. He also referred to a peace proposal from Iran as totally unacceptable and a piece of garbage.
After reading that piece of garbage they sent us, I didn't even finish reading it. They said, I'm not going to waste my time reading it. I would say it's one of the weakest right now. It's on life support. They understand.
Underlining that Tehran cannot have a nuclear weapon, he claimed that Iran had agreed to hand over its highly enriched uranium to the United States and that the U.S. was one of the only countries that could remove it, but later changed its position.
So we talked about it, and they said, you'll have to take it out because we don't have the capability of doing it. We were going to go with them, but they changed their mind because they didn't put it in the paper.
Earlier on the same day, the U.S. president told Fox News that he was considering resuming the suspended Project Freedom operation. The news outlet reported Trump as saying that guiding U.S. military ships in the Strait of Hormuz would be a small part of a larger military operation, though he had not made a final decision yet. In response to pressure from Trump, Iran said he had completed preparations for all possible countermeasures. Mohammad Bahar Ghalibaf, who led the Iranian delegation in the ceasefire negotiations, wrote on X on Monday night that Iran's armed forces are fully prepared to respond decisively to any aggression, and that Iran is fully prepared for every option and that the response would be surprising. Kim Bo-young, Arirang News.
The Blue House has strongly condemned last week's attack on a South Korean container ship in the Strait of Hormuz, having confirmed that an unidentified aircraft was the cause of the recent fire on the container ship. Seoul is still learning about who is behind the attacks. Our Yoon Jung-min reports.
The day after a set of attacks was identified as the cause of the recent fire on a South Korean cargo ship stranded in Hormuz, National Security Advisor Wi Sung-nak sent out a strong condemnation.
Our government strongly condemns any attack on civilian ships, including HMM Namu, as it is not justifiable or acceptable.
The Korean government has confirmed that attacks by two unidentified aircraft were behind last week's fire on the cargo vessel. It is still learning about the details, including the source of the attack.
Given the pattern of the damage and the hemispherical-shaped area of penetration, the chances of a mine or torpedo attack appear to be low.
The chief advisor added that Seoul will take a further look into the origin of the launch, as well as the exact type and fiscal size of the objects. We added that Seoul will double its efforts to secure the safety of Korean sailors and vessels near the strait, and continue its efforts to join an international move to guarantee the safety of all vessels and freedom of navigation. A senior-level official at the top office noted that the authorities are not at the stage of specifying the origin of the attack, and appropriate levels of measures will be taken after the probe is concluded. When asked about any involvement by Iran, the official said it's in an unknown area. On U.S. President Donald Trump accusing Tehran of firing at the Korean ship soon after the incident, the senior Blue House official added that they have communicated with Washington, but it remains unclear on what grounds Trump has made such a statement. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
A South Korean official will attend a virtual defense ministers meeting hosted by the United Kingdom and France on Tuesday to discuss restoring safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. The meeting follows a series of talks that began with a France-hosted video conference of military chiefs in March. There's interest on what stance the South Korean government will take, as the meeting comes after the HMM ship Namu was reported to have been struck by an unidentified airborne object. The Defense Ministry said that it will carefully review realistic ways to contribute in consultation with relevant government ministries. South Korea and the United States are stepping up coordination on major alliance and security issues, including the transfer of wartime operational control and growing tensions in the Strait of Hormuz. Defense Minister An Kyu-baek met U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth in Washington on Monday, where the two sides also discussed alliance modernization and regional security cooperation. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
South Korean Defense Minister An Kyu-baek met U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth in Washington on Monday as the allies coordinated on major security issues, including wartime operational control transfer, alliance modernization, and tensions in the Strait of Hormuz. The Pentagon meeting marked the first defense ministers' talks between the two countries in more than 6 months. During opening remarks, Hegseth stressed the importance of allied unity and burden sharing, referencing the recent U.S. military operation against Iran.
The strength of our alliance is critical, and we look to our partners to stand shoulder to shoulder with us.
He also praised South Korea's pledge to increase defense spending and take on a larger role in defending the Korean peninsula. An voiced support for the Trump administration's peace through strength policy and said Seoul is also boosting defense spending and military capabilities to strengthen South Korea-led defense on the peninsula.
In line with this, we are also making every effort to secure core national defense capabilities through measures such as increasing defense spending so that we can realize a defense of the Korean peninsula led by us.
In a joint statement, both sides said that they discussed security on the Korean peninsula and agreed to strengthen cooperation on key alliance issues, including the transfer of wartime operational control and alliance modernization. However, differences remain over the timeline for the transfer of wartime operational control. U.S. Forces Korea Commander General Xavier Brunson recently suggested early 2029 as a possible target date, while the Lee Jae-myung administration is reportedly aiming for completion before the end of its term in 2028. Other sensitive issues believed to have been discussed include cooperation on nuclear-powered submarines, North Korea-related intelligence sharing, and maritime security in the Strait of Hormuz following the attack on the South Korean cargo ship HMM Namu. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung has called for expansionary fiscal policy to prop up economic growth. Presiding over a cabinet meeting this morning, he urged officials to ensure that the stance is reflected in the growth strategy plan for the latter half of the year, as well as next year's budget planning. He said critics calling for government belt tightening were irresponsible and were turning a blind eye to people's hardships. He says South Korea's actual debt amounts to around 10% of its GDP, adding that its debt structure is sturdier than its global peers. Starting next week, South Korea will launch the second round of high oil price relief payments for the bottom 70% of income earners, with support up to 250,000 Korean won, depending on region and eligibility. Our Cho Young-eun has the details.
The South Korean government will begin distributing a second round of high oil price relief payments starting May 18. The government moves to ease the financial burden caused by soaring fuel prices and rising living costs amid the Middle East crisis. The support programs targets the bottom 70% of income earners, covering around 36 million people nationwide.
Under the government's region-based support policy, eligible residents in the Seoul metropolitan area will receive 100,000 won, or about $68. Those living outside the capital region will receive 150,000 won, while residents in areas facing population decline may receive up to 200,000 won. Special support regions will receive the maximum payments of 250,000 won.
The impact of the Middle East war is affecting not only vulnerable groups, but also ordinary and middle-class households, requiring more proactive fiscal support. Accordingly, the government plans to provide a second round of high oil price relief funds to ease people's financial burdens and support economic recovery.
Eligibility will be determined based on health insurance premium records from March, as individuals with high-value assets or significant financial income will be excluded from the program. The application and payment period will run for about 7 weeks through July 3rd. Those who are eligible for the first round of payments but have not yet applied will also be able to do so during the same period. The high oil price relief funds will be limited to use within the local jurisdiction tied to each recipient's registered address. Recipients may choose to receive the payments through credit cards, debit cards, local gift certificates, or prepaid cards, and use them at affiliated stores with annual sales of 3 billion won or less. As with the first round, the funds must be spent by August 31st, with any remaining balance to expire afterward. Restricted businesses include online shopping platforms, entertainment and gambling-related establishments, and cash equivalent businesses in line with restrictions commonly applied to local gift certificate programs. 조영은, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump's delegation for this week's summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping is expected to include a number of top American technology and finance executives. According to the U.S. media Monday, citing White House officials, Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk, Apple CEO Tim Cook, and Boeing CEO Kelly Ortberg will accompany Trump during the visit to Beijing. Executives from Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, and Citigroup are also expected to join the delegation. The visit comes as several U.S. firms pursue major business opportunities in China. The White House says trade and investment issues will also be discussed during the summit. However, Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang was not invited to join the delegation. The Pacific Asia Travel Association annual summit is taking place in the southern cities of Pohang and Gyeongju through Wednesday, bringing together tourism insiders for discussions on building a more resilient future for the industry. Our culture correspondent Park Gun-woo sat down with the association's CEO to discuss the future of Korean tourism.
Drawing nearly 19 million tourists to Korea last year was a clear positive signal for the country's tourism. An expert at the Pacific Asia Travel Association annual summit said that Korea needs to look beyond the numbers.
But then the question now that Korea need to ask themselves is that, are you just looking at numbers? It's about how do you manage the destination well? And I think if that is being done in a more cohesive way, I think Korea will be a very, very appealing destination.
Looking beyond K-pop and K-culture, Hamid pointed to other areas where Korea leads the way in order to attract more visitors: sustainability.
Korea is one of the destinations that do very well in a lot of areas of sustainability, including food waste management. That also teaches the visitors when they come to Korea to do the same. In the long run, I think Korean will gain more because I think you have a huge respect to nature and culture and preservation.
The CEO cited Jeju Island as a notable example of balancing tourism growth with sustainability, while addressing over-tourism, a challenge also faced by popular destinations like Barcelona.
They have actually come up with a real-time measurement on the hotspot area within the island. Destination needs to have those kind of mechanism, and I think Jeju has already been doing that, which is very successful. I think because they know that while they want the business from travel and tourism, but they need to protect their tourism asset.
One of the key agenda topics at this year's PATA summit is regional tourism, an issue Korea is also grappling with as it seeks to spread visitor demand beyond the capital region. So this year's annual summit is being hosted in two cities across South Korea, Pohang and Gyeongju. Why were these two cities selected, and does it have any symbolic significance, especially in terms of the future of tourism within the Asia-Pacific region?
The APEC last year, which is I think a huge success, and really put Gyeongju into the map. You also have Pohang, which has different attributes and attractions. We need to walk our talk to start exploring cities beyond the comfort zone.
And especially as this year marks the 75th anniversary of PATA, Hamid says Korea's continuous contribution and collaboration with the organization and its members will be key for both to create a more sustainable future in tourism. 박건우, Arirang News, Pohang.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. As U.S. pump prices hit their highest level since 2022, President Trump said on Monday he supports suspending the federal gasoline tax code till it's appropriate. Suspending the 18-cent per gallon federal tax requires an act of Congress. The tax currently generates around $2.5 billion a month in road funding. Lawmakers from both sides have pushed for the tax to be suspended. Energy analysts said the move is unlikely to have much impact, warning that as long as the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, consumers will barely notice as pump prices will keep climbing regardless of the tax cut. The final 6 passengers on the hantavirus-hit cruise ship have now disembarked. Spain's health minister declared the evacuation complete on Monday, and the MV Hondias is now heading from Tenerife to the Netherlands. A recommended 42-day quarantine for all passengers begins, but new hantavirus cases among the evacuated passengers are raising fresh concerns. A French passenger whose condition is deteriorating, one Spanish national and one American have all tested positive since leaving the ship. A second American is showing mild symptoms. In total, 7 cases of the Andes strain of hantavirus have now been confirmed, with 2 further suspected cases. So far, 3 people in total have died. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa made a televised address on Monday where he refused to resign after a constitutional court ruling last week revived impeachment proceedings against him. This follows the Farmgate scandal in which thieves stole hundreds of thousands of dollars in foreign cash hidden inside a sofa on his private game farm. The scandal came to light in 2022. Ramaphosa said nothing in the court's ruling compels him to leave office and pledged to defend himself. His ruling ANC party called an emergency meeting for Tuesday to decide its next move. The U.S. state of Texas is suing Netflix. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton accused the streaming giant on Monday of secretly collecting user data, including children's viewing habits without consent, selling that data to advertisers, and deliberately designing its platform to be addictive. Texas claims Netflix told consumers for years it did not collect or share user data, but was actually tracking and selling viewing habits to data brokers. The lawsuit also targets Netflix's autoplay feature, calling it a deliberate tool to keep users, including children, locked to their screens. Netflix said the lawsuit was without merit and said it complies with privacy laws everywhere it operates. Chu Ji-han, Arirang News.
Heavy spring rain has been sweeping across the southern regions today. The Jeollado provinces could see up to 70 millimeters of somewhat heavy rainfall, and the Chungcheongdo and Jeju-do Island might see 10 to 50 millimeters of showers. The capital area might not see any rain today, but that rain will continue on and off through late this afternoon along with thunderstorms. The rain is also helping bring temperatures back closer to seasonal norms in many regions today. Most parts will remain in the low 20s, making today feel far less intense than the recent stretch of early summer heat. Meanwhile, the capital area will be under sunnier skies with a warmer highs than yesterday, getting up to 23 degrees Celsius here in Seoul. Southern provinces will be cooler at 23 degrees in Gyeongju, Daejeon, and Gwangju this afternoon. The cooler break, however, will be short-lived. Sunny skies return and temperatures will climb rapidly once again. By Saturday, temperatures in Seoul could soar to 30 degrees Celsius, marking the hottest day of the year so far.
Now that's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.